Hi, this is Elizabeth Harmon. I'm here with Ted Willliams. He's a friend of mine. He and his wife Barb have been friends of mine for a long time. We kind of grew up in the same state near each other and didn't even know each other then. He's a former military and law enforcement expert. He's a security consultant and has a website called awareandready.com. And he's here to talk to us today about some things he feels real strongly about, and I think by the time you listen to this, you might have some questions that he might be able to answer for you. So, Ted, who the heck are you?
First, thank you for having me on.
You're welcome.
I'm basically been in law enforcement and military for about 18 years, public service combined. I'm currently owner of Tactical Edge, a training consulting company specializing in visual tracking, man tracking, hunting down suspects with law enforcement. And we do consulting and specialize in counter IED technologies.
Okay, so you talk about tracking. I mean, I'm familiar with hunting and tracking hunting. What are we talking about here?
It's basically the same thing, except now we're hunting two-legged varieties. We're hunting men instead of wildlife.
Trying to find where the bad guy went.
Exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. So you've brought to us a course that you've developed on Sharia law, the not-so-hidden agenda. So what does that mean? What is Sharia law, the not-so-hidden agenda?
Basically, we're talking about stealth jihad and the advancement of Sharia law, the old Islamic laws in this country.
Okay.
That's basically, in a nutshell, what we're talking about.
So that's your fear.
Exactly.
That's the whole point, is that people need to be educated about that. All right. So what could Sharia law mean in the United States then?
Well, ultimately, it could mean a takeover and institution of Sharia law in our country. It sounds pretty far-fetched at this point, but when you look at other countries in Europe right now, one of them is the United Kingdom, it's not so far-fetched. In a few years, they'll be taken over.
Yeah. Well, certainly has been a progression of what appears to be a radical Islamic foothold in that country. Okay, so is Sharia law practiced by all Muslims in the United States?
Unfortunately, they're not practiced by all Muslims, but there are varying degrees of practice. Just like any religion, you have the hardcore believers who practice it and follow it to the letter, and you have people who are not so committed. And those folks are more relaxed. They don't follow it to the letter.
Okay.
So you can have varying degrees of involvement.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So why aren't we investigating the radical Islamic people in this nation? Why is it that we aren't? I mean, I know we're associating that with homegrown terrorism, but tell me more about that.
Well, it's all about political correctness, and I know that sounds pretty far-fetched until you see how it's applied. But basically, we're in denial as part of a country. It's taken us a while to catch up.
Okay.
And that's part of it. It takes a while for it to filter down to our level where we can identify it and realize it's a threat. And we're just now seeing that in our government. We're starting to see hearings.
Right, the hearings. Yeah, exactly. So, and those are ongoing. And so, why is it so hard for people, just generally for people, to talk about Islam? Why?
It has to do with political correctness.
Again.
It has to do with denial.
Okay.
You know, we just can't believe it's happening here.
Okay.
We've been without a lot of this stuff for years that Europe has been dealing with for decades.
Right.
And it's just coming here.
Well, and a point I wanted to make is that I did a bunch of research before we made this recording on just seeing what I could find on the internet, and I was appalled. I was completely blown away. I found some websites that were basically exposing what Islam means, what the practice of their religion is, what the deeper meanings and beliefs are. And then I found some what they call Islamophobic type websites that were obviously made by Muslims who they basically intimidate the crap out of everybody to try to get them to shut up and not ask questions. I mean, that's the underlying belief, or the underlying things that they had on their websites. It was amazing.
Yeah, when you look at websites and go to some of these Islamic fests that they have, you'll find it's a pretty benign facade up front, but when you start looking behind the facade and start researching it, you find it's a more radical agenda than you can ever believe, and you're just touching on the edges of it.
Okay. So your course, learn 5 things everybody should know about Sharia law. Tell me about that.
Well, we start off the course with what the threat is the United States, and what we're doing is laying the foundation for the other 4 modules.
Okay. And that would be?
Next one is we start talking about CAR, Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, the Nation of Islam in the U.S., their funding and their linkage to each other, and how it relates to Sharia law.
Okay. And then the next is?
We're talking about the U.S. Constitution and the threat of Sharia law. What we're trying to do here is show the listener or demonstrate to the listener the differences between what Sharia law is and what the Constitution is. It's in direct antithesis of our Constitution.
Okay. All right. And that threat, the threat that we have with the Sharia law is that we have seen it in other countries, right?
Exactly.
Now, we're not trying to be alarmist. We're not trying to, you're not here to be...
Oh, no, it's more educational.
Yeah, it's just to educate and let people know exactly what the differences are, right? Okay, so the next one we have that you have down for a module is the threats in our school system.
Exactly.
Tell me about that.
Well, we're seeing a gradual influx and indoctrination into our school systems of radical Islam.
Okay.
Not only from the madrasas that we talked about earlier, but in our public schools. In fact, we have charter schools right now that are being funded by our government, and those schools are being indoctrinated by radical Islam.
So tell me an example of that.
Well, one example, there was a teacher who infiltrated in the United States, or immigrated, and I shouldn't say infiltrated, but immigrated to the United States under the auspices of the U.S. He was led in the country because he had an educational background, supposedly. Come to find out he didn't. But the main thrust is that he started a little over 100 of these charter schools across the U.S. They're all over the country.
Okay.
And those are schools that are slowly indoctrinating our students, the ones who attend those schools, in radical Islam.
Oh.
They're in effect, they're little incubators for terrorism.
Wow. Okay, so what can we do?
Well, there's quite a few things we can do. We can start out by, one, learning the issues, which we're doing through this course, and what we can do about it, educating our public, educating our law enforcement and our judicial system as to the threat Sharia law really poses, not only to our way of life and our Constitution, but to our kids.
Okay.
We can do this by going to our congressman and saying, hey, look, learn about this.
Right.
Let us teach you. Let us introduce bills. We want you to support and introduce these kind of bills that will limit its damaging effects on our country.
Okay, so that's one part of your course.
Exactly.
I know that you have these 5 modules to teach about Sharia law. That's not the whole course, is it? I mean, that's not what you're getting, right? I mean,
no.
People get more than that from you that would add a value to them where they can learn some things that can protect them personally. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now I know that you've written a book. I read it, couldn't put it down. It's number 5 on Amazon Book Review, number 4 on Barnes & Noble Book Review. It's called Operation Firestorm. So tell me a little bit about this book real quickly.
In a nutshell, it's about a situation that occurs in the mountains of Idaho. It's about attack on a nuclear research facility, and in conjunction with that, there's other attacks on our nation's highways, roadside IEDs being planted at the same time.
And tell us what an IED is for the people that don't know.
Improvised explosive devices,
So
similar to
bombs.
what we're seeing.
Pretty much bombs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much what we're seeing in Iraq and Afghanistan now, the same kind of
Okay,
technology.
only you bring it, if it's a fiction novel, but you bring that thought to this country, and what would we do, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. What are the implications?
Okay. So you're offering this course. You get the 5 modules, right? You get. Tell us everything so that we all understand.
Okay. There's 5 things I'm providing. I'm providing a downloadable copy of the course outline. An hour prior to the course, you can download this so you can follow along with the course.
Okay.
We have an audio CD, Surviving Terrorism: How to Travel Smart, Travel Safe.
Okay.
It's priceless if it saves your life. This is a great book. We have another audio CD, The New Terrorism: How to Fight Back, Stay Safe. This is how to travel, in terrorist environments.
And I've taken a look at those too, and they're not your typical book. at all. They have a real depth to them of some steps people should be taking to keep themselves safe in an unsafe world.
Yeah, it's not something you would talk over the dinner table, but it's light reading, it's informative, and like I say, you're going to get a lot out of this.
And these are audios. You can pop them in your car on your way
Exactly.
to work and kind of grab a couple of ideas and be working on them at a time, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then what else?
We have softcover, my novel Operation Firestorm. We're throwing that in. We have 5 hours of combined coursework online. It's a $1,500 value. I'm giving it to you for $497.
Okay, so how did you come up with the $1,500 value? Is because you're a consultant, you charge a hourly rate.
Exactly.
I mean, we're just saying, okay, from your hourly rate, that would be the value,
Exactly.
right? And so we're putting together this. You've got this package put together, and people can actually, I mean, if they choose to take advantage of that, it may be the thing that saves their life in the event we have an.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is very informative. You can look on this, and it applies to the whole spectrum, whether it's you're trying to get away from a biological attack or some other form of terrorist attack, or just an earthquake or a natural disaster.
Okay.
You know, this can apply to everything.
Okay. So, all right. So you have all of this package and put together, and we're offering the course. And so for anyone who's listening, we appreciate the fact that you've stuck with us this far, and hopefully, if it's something that you think would be interesting, we'd love to have contact with you about that. So thank you, Ted. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet.